All right, welcome to Bowden Wealth Management. Usually we don't do intros, but it is warranted today just because I have a special guest on today with me. My name is Robert Bowden, and to my left, I have my beautiful wife,
Corey Bowden.
And in addition, our beautiful son, who
Robert
is
the
8 weeks
third.
old. Robert the third. So the reason that I had my wife on today is because we have a lot of money conversations. We talk a lot about money as it relates to investing, growing our family, just overall, just generational wealth. And these are conversations that I thought would be really good to include as a part of our content and making sure that the people that we serve and the people who are watching have some insight into what these conversations look like and how to execute on them in general. So today, one of the topics I thought was interesting was moving from the mindset of like my money to our money, and this was definitely relevant in how we came to combine our finances and things like that. But I just have some questions that I thought would be helpful to go through. First question to you is, when two people become one, when they just get married, two people become one, do their finances automatically become one as well? Or is it more complicated than that?
Finances becoming one, you mean like everything put into one pot?
One pot.
Yeah. I would say it's a little more complicated than that. I mean, the process of becoming one, I can only speak from our experience. So I can't speak for everyone because I've heard of couples who still have separate accounts and do things separately. So I feel like for us, it was a process where when we started, after we got engaged and we started saving up for the wedding, that was the first time we had opened up an account together.
We had a joint savings.
Right. So we had a joint savings account, which was essentially one pot that we put both of our income into, that we, had designated amount that we would contribute to the wedding fund and all of that. And then that account eventually became is now our joint bill account.
Right.
And we have a couple other joint accounts as well, that has evolved over that we've added over the course of our marriage. We have a joint spending account for like groceries and gas and dates and all of that stuff, like household essentials. And then we have the joint bill account, which I just talked about, was previously our wedding fund account. And then we have a joint savings account. So those are things, to answer your question, like it didn't just automatically happen like that. We, over time, kind of as we got into a rhythm and developed systems around how we operate financially, those things developed over time.
Yeah. I think it's more complicated than that. I don't think that just because you get married that things are automatically going to start happening in any capacity. Marriage is something that requires a lot of work, and I think the passage that we brought up, Genesis 2:24, talks about the two shall become one flesh. It doesn't say that they'll be one flesh. It says become, which is something that takes time and iterations. In the essence, the becoming one flesh is financial, emotional, spiritual, like all of these things. I think that just takes time and work and a lot of communication to be able to operate in that capacity.
Going from my money to our money, I think for me, it just looked like keeping the big picture in mind. My money, and I mean, from the previous question, I think I kind of shifted from my money being my money to our money when we got engaged, because that was the first time where we had like a common goal that we were working towards. And so it wasn't just about me making money and buying whatever I wanted. Like, I had to, there was a bigger plan, a bigger goal at stake.
Yeah.
And so that's when I believe that shift started. It wasn't just about me anymore. It's like, okay, we have a wedding to plan and a wedding to pay for and a life to start together. So yeah, I would say that's when that shift happened for me.
Yeah. So I think the biggest mindset shift I had to make when we got together was really coming to the understanding that, like, it's not just about me, which is hard. I didn't really have to consult anyone. I didn't have to bring my purchase to a person and kind of vet it out and talk about it. That never did. It didn't exist. So I operated as an individual, and that's all of us. All of us come as individuals into marriage, and then you're not the individual anymore. You're in a union. So there has to be unity in the union, and to do that requires sort of a form of selflessness. So instead of just thinking about myself in a purchase, I have to consult my wife. I have to think about our household. I have to think about future things that really don't have, they have something to do with me, but not really. So that's the biggest change, because that's something that I've done every day up until the day that I get engaged, and then it changes immediately. And you sort of have to just really change the way that you think about that aggressively, because if not, that can cause some tension in the household for sure.
I have an example. After we got married, you took your car, like something was wrong with your car, and it was the Impala, and you took it to get it fixed. And it was it wasn't like a huge expense, but it was a significant expense to where that was something that we should have talked about.
Is that why we were engaged?
That was when we got married.
When we got married?
It was when we first were married.
Okay.
When we were married. It was pretty early on. And so you were like, I don't know if you had gotten it fixed yet, but you were like, yeah, I'm taking it to get it fixed. And I was like, well, we need to talk about this. And so I think it was like, you weren't against talking about it, but it was just the fact that it didn't come second. It wasn't second nature for you to be like, hey, babe, this, because it was your car. It was the car that you had before we got married. And you're just like, oh, something's wrong with my car. So I need to get it fixed. And of course, yes, you need to get your car fixed. So it wasn't but it was just, well, let's sit down and look at all the other priorities and expenses and stuff that we have now together.
Right.
Before you go and get your car fixed. And then the system is jacked because we don't. So
and I think that example gives a really good point in why people have this sort of reluctancy or sometimes fear of doing this, making it our money, and that is because they sometimes think that it's going to be restrictive. I can't do the things, or I'm held back from something, or I don't have the freedom that I once had before that I'm looking for in this situation. And I'm going to go get my car fixed. I might have a little bit of pride and say yeah, I'm doing this. It's my money. When you can't operate that way in a marriage. You can, but it's probably not going to be
very sustainable, or fruitful. And we have our own separate accounts where we have for personal expenses and stuff like that. So the cost of what it took to fix your car was what exceeded beyond what that allowance that we give ourselves, unless you were saving up or whatever. But all that to say, again, it wasn't, oh no, you can't go get your car fixed, or you can't pay to get your car fixed. It was more of a communication, let's look at the whole picture. Let's see what we have in the account. Let's see how this would affect other things, and yeah. So
yeah, and I think that's a big deal, just because you have those two ways of handling that same thing. Whereas if I had come to you, brought it to you, and we talked about it, I could still get the same result. Meaning the car is going to get fixed. However, it brings a little bit more closeness to us and our relationships by being able to communicate and go through those things together. Whereas the way that I did it, and I think a lot of people end up doing it this way, is more so focusing on me and what I can do and what I own and all this kind of stuff, and not involving you, then that actually divides us a little bit. We start to feel separated. We don't feel as close, just because, again, it's not our money, it's your money, and you're only thinking about yourself. So I think that's something to be conscious of, just in managing money in a marriage, in a relationship in general. You just want to be thoughtful and considerate of your partner and what the household has going on.
I would just say start with conversation. Get aligned on what I would say getting aligned on what, y'all are comfortable with, what makes sense to you all as a couple, what your goals are. I think that's important because, that looks different for our system, and how we do things may not work for some. I don't see how it wouldn't work. But
I know how it wouldn't if someone is still clinging to that form of
Yeah, I think it starts with the mindset and letting go of the pride, and really, because I think that's the biggest thing that keeps people from really having peace in that area is pride.
Right.
Thinking that your money is your money and their money is, your spouse's money is your spouse's money, and just trying to keep it totally separate. And it's just well, what's the point of getting married?
Yeah.
We're supposed to be one flesh, a union, one household, one family. So it's why is it this, tit for tat? If you're going into it with a tit for tat mindset, that's the type of results you're going to get.
Right.
And so I would just say working on that mindset internally, having those conversations, getting to know one another through a financial lens. What is each of your relationship with money, and how can y'all keep each other accountable? How can y'all cultivate and grow together? What are your goals? I think it's just a lot of reflection and discussion that needs to happen at the forefront.
Yeah, and you said one thing that can keep people from doing this type of work or asking these types of questions is pride. But I think the other thing to add on top of pride, which I agree with, is just a lack of trust. Because you want to, like I said, cling to all of the decisions and have control over all of the finances, especially if you're the main earner.
Yeah.
And you're having to trust your partner with a particular thing.
Mm-hmm.
If that trust doesn't exist, it's going to be a lot harder to consult a person when you don't see them as your partner or equal when it comes to managing the money. So a lot of humility, for sure. It was that way for me, and I'm sure it'll be a lot of other people who can relate to that. But if you have that, that's going to be the common ground between husband and wife to be able to find a good system that works in their household. And
honestly, if you can't let go of that, I would not recommend you get married.
Yes.
Because finances is isn't it the biggest reason people get divorced?
One of the main ones, yeah.
And if that's a mindset that you can't, if you're just going into it with oh no, this is my money, I made this, you wouldn't want me shooting in the gym, you will be better off just, living your life.
Yeah.
Just
maybe it's just not the
single or-
season.
Yeah.
Maybe it just takes a little time to kind of work your way to getting there. But
Right. Or, yeah, I like how you said that. In this season, maybe it's just not. And those are things, if you're a Christian, if you consider yourself a Christian, those are things that we have to lay before the feet of Christ and, take it to the throne and surrender those things to him, because it doesn't work in marriage.
Mm-mm.
So,
and there's no hiding.
yeah.
No hiding. But I like what you said. Ask questions. Ask a lot of questions. Questions get to the heart of the issues. So allow that space. Don't judge. Don't critique. Don't do all of those things, because we are two totally different individuals. The way that I think about money is different than how she thinks about money. And when we do become one flesh, her thoughts become my thoughts. Like, we have to find common ground, or else the thing is going to implode. So